All right. Hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome to our webinar on graduation. This webinar is sponsored by OSPI's Open Doors 1418 Youth Reengagement Program. We're delighted to have you join us. We really want to extend a warm welcome to our Open Doors program staff who are able to join us today, our migrant education out-of-school youth program staff, alternative learning, and our ALE folks, and everyone else who has made the effort to be here live with us. I wanted to say that we are just honored to have Brittany Thompson as our content presenter today. Brittany works at OSPI as the program supervisor for the secondary school counseling, and she is our resident expert on graduation requirements. My name is Mandy Paradise, and I'm the re-engagement program supervisor at OSPI. And I'm going to start us off with a brief agenda, some light framing related to Open Doors Youth Reengagement. Now, today's webinar covers the basics for Washington State graduation, and the content is especially useful for anybody who is supporting students to earn their diploma and graduate from high school. So for our Open Doors attendees, this webinar is going to be helpful for any staff working in an Open Doors Youth Reengagement program that offers a high school diploma pathway. And if your program does not offer a high school diploma pathway, there are a lot of good useful pieces that relate back to the IAPs that you're going to want to hear. So thank you for staying with us. Please note that we are focused on sharing a broad Washington State graduation requirements, waivers, and pathways overview. So our title really does say it all. It's a graduation 101. So we're here to provide the basics and then a little extra detail. We really welcome your questions, but we request that you use that Q&A feature so that we can record them and get back to them as soon as possible. Now, for questions that are specific to Open Doors or alternative learning settings, just heads up that we may not be able to provide all the details or the full details you're looking for in this session, but any questions we can't answer today will very much help us in the future to either plan a more targeted webinar or to get back to you with some new communications that help give you the details you're looking for. So we do invite those questions. We will be monitoring the chat. Jenna is going to be in the chat and watching the Q&A. We're going to answer what we can, and we invite you to always email myself or Brittany for anything that we're not able to answer today. So to start, let's do a quick overview of Open Doors Youth Reengagement programs. Now, Open Doors is a targeted program, and it serves a very specific group of youth and young adults. First, the program only serves youth between the ages of 16 and 21. Second, the program focuses on youth who are unable to graduate with their four-year cohort and who are severely credit deficient. Many Open Doors students do graduate, and this is due to the supports that they receive in their programs. Most of our graduating students are graduating in their 5th or 6th year of high school. Third, Open Doors exists as a re-engagement program and prioritizes youth who have dropped out or been pushed out or who are otherwise disengaged. And it serves students who are not enrolled and not attending a school and who may need specific and targeted outreach to be re-engaged back into a school setting. So Open Doors Youth Re-Engagement Program can really be implemented in a variety of options and ways. We call these pathways. So there are 4 pathways that an Open Doors program can operate. Now, each pathway helps students to move forward and make progress towards education and career skills. And that might be for a diploma or it might not be for a diploma. Our program does both. You might know that an Open Doors program offers 1 pathway. Some programs offer 2 pathways. Others even offer 3. We have a few programs that offer all 4. But one thing we wanted you to be aware of is that at least for today's setting, our webinar is going to be especially helpful for those working in a program pathway, an Open Doors program that offers high school diploma. And in Open Doors, all of our students who are working to achieve their high school diploma will need to meet the Washington State graduation requirements. And that's what Brittany is here to help us with and learn more about. So one more slide before we get started into all things graduation. I want to clearly name that the term pathway can be a little misleading. Please note that in Open Doors, the pathway is referring to our designs or our options that the program gives to students. But when it comes to graduating and earning a high school diploma, the word pathway is very specific and it refers to graduation pathways. Now, graduation pathways are different than the Open Doors pathways, and they are the things that are required for a student to graduate in Washington State. So basically, any student seeking their high school diploma must complete these a graduation pathway. And again, this is all going to be covered in detail by Brittany. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and shift into the graduation content with Brittany. Thank you so much for being here and joining us, Brittany. All you.
Thank you, Mandy. Thanks for allowing me to be able to share this space with you today. And I want to just thank everyone who's joined us today in service of supporting our students. I always love to start first with acknowledging that we are all residing on the traditional lands of the first peoples of the area that many of us call Washington State. So there are many people, families, communities, past and present, who represent tribal nations. And it's our role to honor with gratitude and respect the land itself upon which we now reside and the First Nations, many of whom are usually listed on this slide, but today they are not exactly on this slide. But today I am coming to you from the ancestral lands of the Puyallup tribe, who have been stewards of the land that we currently refer to as Tacoma. The Puyallup tribe have lived on and stewarded these lands since the beginning of time, and they continue to do so today. And I recognize that this land acknowledgement is just one small step toward true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the indigenous people of this land and beyond. So I wanted to invite you at this moment, if you know the ancestral lands upon which you reside, please feel free to acknowledge that in the chat. And if you don't know yet, there are some resources available through Google search so that you can basically begin to learn a little bit more. And always remember that it's recommended for any district wishing to create a statement to acknowledge your local tribe to engage in tribal consultation as part of the development process. Next slide. What you see here is an overview of some of the topics that I'll be covering today with you. And so, as Mandy mentioned, I just want to emphasize as well that the info I'll be giving today will be really relevant to anyone looking to get an overview of all graduation requirements, as well as some graduation related information that pertains, at least in some way, to all students in Washington State. So while some different programs may have specific requirements, I'm hopeful that some, if not all, of the information I'm going to share today will be of assistance to you as you're thinking about helping our kids get to graduation. I'll also be sharing some information about waivers and tons of graduation related resources that you can engage with during your work with students. So before we dive into each of the components of graduation requirements, I want to first share an overview of the 3 broad requirements that students must complete to earn a Washington State diploma. So the first requirement of the total graduation requirements is a high school and beyond plan. As well as high school instruction and credits, which 24 credits are currently required in the Washington State graduation requirements. Students also have to receive a graduation pathway, and the hope is that with all of these graduation requirements combined, students earn a meaningful diploma and are demonstrating their preparation for their next step after graduation. So as we jump into credit requirements, credits are just one of the 3 components of graduation requirements, which you've seen already. So students have to meet these requirements, and by being informed about the options that students have to meet the credit requirements, this will also help you to support students in not only meeting their requirements, but it'll also help you engage with students as you learn more about them and their interests. You'll be able to make connections between what they love to do and also the courses that are available to them. So when working with students and doing an audit on the courses they've taken and still need to take, it'll be really helpful to think about credit requirements in two ways. And so you'll be wanting to think about what courses meet graduation requirements and which courses help students prepare for their goals after high school. So being able to kind of bridge that gap will help to ensure that students not only meet their requirements, but also have a chance to engage in courses that relate to their actual interests and goals. Students have to have 24 credits to graduate. And I love this graphic from the State Board of Education. It's one of my favorites. It's a very easy way to kind of get a visual look at what credits are needed. So what you'll see here is that of the 24 credits required, 17 of those credits are what are called foundational credits. Those include what you probably know as like the core classes of English, science, math, social studies, health and fitness, arts, and career and technical education. And those other 7 credits are electives. Where it gets kind of tricky is that the third credits of science and math are chosen by students based on their post-high school goals. And the personalized pathway requirement, so which you see in the very last column there, those are flexible credits that support students' preparation for their next step after graduation. So if a student is pursuing the college or university graduation pathway, then the student should consider taking 2 world language credits in the same world language. Students who are pursuing college or university pathways should also consider replacing their 2nd credit of art with other additional core courses or electives that are aligned with their post-high school goals and preparing for those goals. Next slide.
So I'm just going to jump in and do a quick follow-up note for our Open Doors programs. So as Brittany described, there are 17 credits required in the foundational academic subject areas. And as she referenced, they're also called core academic subjects. And in our Open Doors WACs and rules, that's the language that you're going to see. So for Open Doors programs, we use our indicators of academic progress, which we call IAPs. And you can see that IAPs G and H, they have language in them that directly refers to foundational or core academic subject areas. And that includes the academic subject areas that Brittany just shared, which are English, science, math, social studies, health and fitness, arts, and CTE, which is the career and technical education. Now, the focus for core academic subject areas for these 2 IAPs is true for all Open Doors Youth Reengagement programs, not just the ones who are serving a diploma pathway or for students working towards their diploma. If you're indicating IAP G or H, then this is, again, goes back to those core academic areas.
Thanks, Mandy. So in addition to the credit requirement, arguably one of the most important aspects of the graduation requirements is the high school and beyond plan, because the high school and beyond plan is going to help guide course taking, as well as the pathway selection, which we will go into a little bit more in depth coming up here. So students are required to complete a high school and beyond plan, and The High School and Beyond Plan is such an amazing tool that not only helps students to plan their course taking, but it helps them to identify their passions, helps them to determine the steps they need to take to make their post-high school goals happen. And it also allows you as staff to help connect with students as well as their families in a meaningful way. So when explaining the High School and Beyond Plan graduation requirement, we like to think in terms of timeframes, opportunities, and results. And so what you see here is basically a framework for quality high school and beyond planning. The High School and Beyond Plan is meant to be an annual exploration and planning process. So not something that just happens one time or something that is checked off in June of a senior year, but something that is explored and adapted based on courses that students take or may not pass, as well as the changing interests that students have. Ideally, the High School and Beyond Plan would be started in 7th grade, but definitely by the end of 8th grade, the High School and Beyond Plan should be started with a skills or interest inventory to help begin planning those high school courses that students will take. Because of the in-depth engagement that students will have with the High School and Beyond Plan, they should be able to discover careers that fit their interest, courses and classes and activities that are aligned with their goals and interests. The school counselors as well as students are able to assess academic progress, document student achievements, and also adjust goals because we know students' goals may be different from 9th grade and 12th grade. So keeping the High School and Beyond Plan updated, aligned with student interests, gives students an opportunity to continue taking those meaningful courses, but also gives staff and school counselors the opportunity to remain informed with their students' goals. Some of the results of High School and Beyond planning is that students are able to make informed class choices. Students are prepared to pursue their post-high school goals that are actually meaningful to them. So this process is meant to be meaningful and in kind of just like a guiding tool for helping students prepare for after graduation. And schools are able to be more responsive to students' interests and goals. A lot of High School and Beyond platforms have reports that you can pull that show exactly where student interests are, which can help schools and school counselors to tailor their offerings when it comes to college visits or career speakers who come and talk to classes, field trips that students may want to engage in. So the High School and Beyond Plan is such an important source of not only guidance, but also information and data that can be used to help meaningfully engage students in their education and in their post-high school preparation. So while the platform or means of developing a High School and Beyond Plan vary by district, each High School and Beyond Plan has to contain the required elements that you'll see on this slide here. So it's also important to note that students who receive special education or related services under an IEP plan will also have an IEP transition plan as well as their High School and Beyond Plan. And each of these help to support students to be ready for their post-high school goals. So it's not one or the other for students receiving special services, but actually both. Next slide.
So I'm going to pop back in and do a tie into Open Doors here, and it continues what Brittany was sharing about the High School and Beyond Plan. One acknowledgement is that we're in our prototypical schools, generally this is work that the school counselors engaged in. We know in Open Doors it might be a variety of staff, but usually is falling into the category of work that is for our case managers. So just acknowledging you all there, and we see you. We wanted to bring out a few points for Open Doors, which is that the high school and beyond plan is required for any Open Doors student who is working to earn a diploma. Also, timing, we wanted to acknowledge that as well, that Open Doors students are very likely starting their high school and beyond plan much later than is typical in a comprehensive high school or a prototypical high school. And that just gets back to us having that awareness, because oftentimes our Open Doors students are much older and they've experienced disengagement. Our students might not be aware that they need to have this plan or have awareness of the plan as a concept. And if they do have a plan, it's likely that it needs some pretty big revisions. I guess the last resource that we wanted to bring up for the high school and beyond plan is the template. So if you didn't know, there are templates available for you to use, and you can find them in the links. We also have a resource with all of these links that'll be made available to you. Moving on just a little bit, I'm asking for a transition moment that while the high school and beyond plan has useful elements to consider for all Open Doors students, that the high school and beyond plan is really only required for our diploma pathway students. There are related resources, however, that benefit all Open Doors youth, and not just our diploma earners. And we're going to talk about that next. And we're going to link it back to our IAPs. Again, you can see where these two things connect, and we're just going to take a deeper dive right now into what we are offering you as a resource, which is the Career Guidance Washington. And it's a collection of pre-made lessons and plans. It has sequences for grades levels all the way from 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And they focus on college and career readiness. So they complement the goals of both the high school and beyond plan, as well as our Open Doors goals that relate back to our IAPs. Open Doors our programs can use the content from the Career Guidance Washington to support college and career readiness. You can see those in the IAP I below and J below, I being related to career readiness and J being related to course creation for job and career. Oh, and I'm sorry, I was college readiness. But on the screen, you should be able to see this big picture. It's the grade 10, and it's got the whole scope and sequence for just one example of the kind of pre-made lessons, and that those things can be utilized and crafted into courses that are meaningful to help your students wherever they are towards their college or career and or both of those goals, and be used by the program towards IAPs. So again, this is not just for your students who are seeking a diploma. Using the Career Guidance Washington resources can really help generate IAPs or IAP potential for students in any of our Open Doors programs and across all pathways and students.
And Mandy, just as you were talking about that, I wanted to address the Career Guidance Washington as well as the question in the chat to let everybody, in the Q&A, to let everybody know that we are actually engaging in a high school and beyond plan advisory committee, right now, where one of the projects that we have is to update this Career Guidance Washington curriculum. So we will actually be going through all of the curriculum and doing kind of like a review, revision, reducing some of the redundancy that may be in it. And we're hoping to launch the new Career Guidance 2.0 in the 2023-2024 school year. So be looking out for that. But in the meantime, these lessons are still relevant. They still can be used, but we will be doing an update of the Career Guidance Washington curriculum. And regarding the question in the Q&A about the training for high school and beyond plan and aligning those with IEP, we also have a team dedicated on the advisory council to doing some differentiation with the high school and beyond plan and presenting trainings dedicated to staff and administrators to the alignment of the high school and beyond plan to not only students who are receiving IEPs, but students who are in institutional education, as well as one other that I forgot, sorry. I can't think of the other one right now, but that team is dedicated to doing that differentiation of the high school and beyond plan so that we can be addressing students who may not be in traditional school environments, but still benefit from the high school and beyond plan experience. All right, graduation pathways. So the last component of the required set of graduation requirements is the choice of a graduation pathway. So in 2019, House Bill 1599 established graduation pathway options, and these options replace the system of graduation assessments and approved alternatives. So through their choice of a graduation pathway, students are able to move towards answering the questions, who am I? What can I become? And how will I become that? Graduation pathways are not alternatives to high school assessment. It's not a way to track students or to check a box for graduation. The graduation pathways are designed to be aligned with the student's high school and beyond plan, and designed to also be built with the year after high school in mind. And also thinking about kind of what do students want to do as their next step, and based on that next step, being able to align their pathway with what they want to become and what their goals are for after high school. Next slide. When thinking about which of the graduation pathways students choose, it's really helpful for staff and school counselors to engage in uncovering what students are interested in doing. So you'll want to be getting students engaged and thinking about their desired career. If their desired career requires a college or university degree or industry certification, or if they want to join the armed forces, or if they want to enter the workforce right away. And depending on that answer, students will know to either go the college or university pathway route, the military, or the career pathway route.
Bringing it back to Open Doors, for students who are seeking a diploma or for Open Doors programs looking to utilize IAP-E, which is for passing one or more tests or benchmarks that would satisfy the State Board of Education's graduation requirements, there are specific pathway requirements to be met. We're just going to talk about that real briefly here. As Brittany said, that there are those three kind of categories for graduation pathways. We have our CTE for the career graduation pathway. We have military pathway and the things that are required for that. We also have our college pathway, which includes both math and English language arts. Now, to learn more about these requirements, Brittany has provided us links to access. And also, you can see the level of detail of the things that count, that are actually counting towards as a benchmark. So they are specific. We also just wanted to do a little note here to please be sure that when you're indicating this IAP, that it is actual CTE or dual credit that the Open Door student is pursuing and that your program is making available to them. So prior to indicating that IAP-E, thoroughly review all online credits, providers, curriculums, any other resources that you're using to make sure that they meet the rigor and the requirements for those specific designations. Just as an example, CTE courses, they have to be taught by a Washington certified CTE teacher and written into the CTE approval documentation, which is submitted in advance to OSPI before that course is approved. So likewise, when it comes to dual credit, true dual credit has some hard lines around it about what constitutes that. So we wanted to name that sometimes the language that gets used might call career education or occupational education CTE, but it's not. And it sometimes happens that some courses that could potentially be eligible, maybe for college credit, sometimes those get misnamed as dual credit when that mixing of terms can just be misleading for not only our programs, but also our students pursuing those options. So we wanted to just raise your awareness, and we hope that we can provide a little bit more detail on this in the future as well. But if you have questions, please do visit our OSPI website and look up the dual credit requirements as well as the CTE requirements, and that'll help you. You can also email myself or Brittany, and we'll be happy to lend a hand.
Thanks, Mandy. So now we are moving on to credit earning flexibility and options. There are options for earning credits besides the traditional way of attending class and earning credit based on time spent in class. As we know, after decades of pushing four-year high school completion, it's becoming a lot more common for educators to understand that many students may take longer to graduate, and that extending time in high school is becoming less and less stigmatized. So the vision that, okay, I have to complete my classes within 4 years, we have to work really hard to kind of reduce that stigma so that students understand that there is not a rush, that they shouldn't feel bad if they are not meeting their graduation requirements in 4 years, and that there is flexibility within within earning credits to be able to have a little bit more time to do that. So in addition to the traditional way of earning credits, students are able to earn credits in dual credit, which are credits that can count for both high school and college credit. Also, mastery-based crediting is a process in which credit is awarded for the demonstration of the mastery of learning standards. And this is evaluated by a student either passing a test or other means that have been approved by your school district. So also students who may need more time to complete their graduation requirements have up to the age of 20 to complete those graduation requirements, and also up to the age of 21 if they're receiving special education services. Also, Mandy she did add here that Open Doors students under the age of 21 are able to have that additional time as well.
Thanks, Brittany.
All right, credit waivers. This is a really hot topic right now. And credit waivers can be a critical way to ensure that students are graduating on time if they've encountered circumstances that have impacted their credit earning opportunities. Next slide. So the first waiver opportunity that I'll speak about is the graduation requirements emergency waiver, which is also called the GRU. It's a last resort, which means that a lot of different options, which I'll go into soon, have to be explored before resorting to using the GRU. And so the GRU is used for waiving courses for students who've been impacted by the pandemic. The GRU permits the waiver of credits and graduation requirements for students who have made a good faith effort and have explored all the other options that I mentioned before and will mention after this slide for earning credits. And part of those options are evaluated through individual student advising, that students have accessed the various academic supports that are available to them, also using that mastery-based crediting example. And we have also provided a link to WAC 180 111 020, which will provide some more examples and more in-depth detail about what a good faith effort is.
Hey, Brittany.
Mm-hmm.
So when Brittany and I were discussing our notes on this, I brought up a question about how does this possibly serve or relate to Open Doors Youth, and one of examples we thought it was for students in Open Doors who maybe have gotten back on track towards a pathway, and if the pandemic then disrupted that progress that they had made, they would be eligible for the GRU. So it is a complicated but still applicable component. So I just didn't want folks to feel like the GRU wasn't always available to Open Doors students when it is. So thanks, Brittany, for letting me interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's an important factor to think about, especially for Open Door students. And as we kind of go into what can be waived with the GRU waiver for class of 2022 and 2023, the GRU waiver has been extended since it was first initiated to include both of these classes, and up to 2 credits can be waived with no more than 1 credit in any core subject area. So what that means is that you are able to waive, for example, a English class or a math class, but you wouldn't be able to waive 2 credits of a 2 math credits. And so it can be also, the GRU waiver can be used also in conjunction with the 2 credit waiver of flexible credits for students who have extenuating circumstances. And I'll be reviewing that as well. And so as long as the student earns 20 credits by the time they graduate, with in conjunction with like the GRU waiver and the other waiver option, then they have they've met the requirements for graduation. The GRU also allows students to waive their graduation pathway option. But it's also important to note that while credits and pathways can be waived with the GRU, the high school and beyond plan is something that is not able to be waived, and is still going to be an important piece that needs to be completed by all students. So student eligibility for the waiver. Students who are reasonably expected to graduate during the 2021 and 2022, so this school year, as well as 2022 and 2023 school year. And so reasonably expected to graduate. Also, they must be able to demonstrate post-secondary preparation for their next steps, which those next steps are going to be identified inside of their high school and beyond plan. And some of the examples of post-secondary preparation demonstration include their completion of a high school graduation pathway, earning college credits, having taken a CTE preparatory course. And again, that same WAC that we mentioned before has some more examples of how students can demonstrate their post-secondary preparation. And the main eligibility factor for the GRU waiver is that students have to have experienced a significant disruption to their ability to complete graduation requirements due to an emergency. Basically, the pandemic was that emergency that this was addressing. A question that we get asked a lot is, can students who want to graduate early use the GRU? So students who want to graduate early have to meet all of their credit and subject area requirements for their cohort, and the GRU can be applied only to the graduation pathway requirement for students who are wanting to graduate early. All right, a very helpful resource to learn even more about the graduation requirement emergency waiver and to get all of your questions answered is our upcoming 2022 graduation requirement emergency waiver office hours. So OSPI will be partnering with our partners at the State Board of Education to provide 2022 GRU updates. And we will have 3 different sessions. You can attend one, you can attend all of them if you want. We found that because they're open to everybody, some people come to one and have different questions than we might have addressed at another one, but we'll also be posting the webinar for public viewing after all of the sessions are complete. So our first one is on May 17th. We also have one on May 25th and May 31st. So definitely go ahead and sign up for our GRU waivers. If you are on our listserv, we actually sent out a reminder this morning for registering. So the link will be there, and the link will also be in these slides that we'll be sending out so that you can register for the upcoming webinars.
Brittany, I just want to say that I was able to just do a glance at our Q&A questions, and I noticed a fair amount of folks have questions specifically about the GRU, or the graduation requirement emergency waiver. So I would suggest that folks who didn't quite get what they wanted today in terms of level of detail to please join one of those GRU office hour sessions, because those will be the focus and we'll be going into more detail. Also, just acknowledging that if we aren't able to answer anything in the Q&A that you've already put in there and you're like, why didn't you answer me? We're going to be compiling Q&A responses, and we'll be sending that out post-webinar as well. So again, if we didn't get quite back to you at the level of detail you had hoped for, we hope to provide that as a after webinar resource. Sorry to interrupt, Brittany. I'll jump back into the slides.
No worries, Mandy. I really appreciate you your follow-up with like what we're talking about. So in addition to the GRU waiver, other waiver options include the waiver of local graduation requirements. So your school district may have graduation requirements that go above and beyond Washington State graduation requirements. And so depending on what your school district has decided as being an extenuating circumstance, your district has the authority to waive those requirements that are above and beyond state graduation requirements. And so again, when we're looking at all of these waivers, all of these options have to be utilized before resorting to the GRU waiver. There's also the flexible credit waiver, in which districts have the authority to waive up to 2 of those flexible credits that we were talking about before for individual students. And none of the waived credits can be mandatory core credits. And again, those are based on individual student circumstances that your district has approved based on their local authority that they have. The PE waiver is the waiver that allows students to be excused from the PE requirements. And so students are still required to demonstrate mastery of the knowledge portion of physical education. And your district will have their own policy about how they are evaluating that knowledge is met and obtained. And it's also important to know that even though the PE waiver requirement is waived, those credits still have to be made up in other ways. So the credit is not being waived, but the actual PE requirement is being waived. There's also an allowance for a Washington State history waiver that is approved by principals for students who have completed Washington State history in another state, or they are in 11th or 12th grade and haven't completed Washington State history because they were living outside of Washington, or they haven't completed Washington State history because of the emergency school closure or circumstances due to an emergency that prevented them from completing Washington State history. Next slide. All right, so as we wrap up, I just wanted to use these last slides to show you where you can access most of this information for your reference as you work with students and families. Since this slide deck will be available after the webinar, you'll be able to have quick access to these links that are provided and be able to just read a little bit more in depth in addition to some of the webinars that we have coming up that will provide an opportunity for question and answer. So on the next slide, we will have graduation requirement resources. So to earn a Washington State high school diploma from public, charter, or tribal compact schools, all students have to demonstrate readiness for their next steps after graduation. So these graduation requirement resources will help give you information that can help you to guide students toward graduation. Again, students have to complete 1 or more graduation pathways to demonstrate their preparation for their next step after high school. And so again, this can include engaging in work, starting an apprenticeship, attending college, joining the military. And these pathways have to be chosen by the student to align with their high school and beyond plan. So these are some of the resources here that can help you learn a little bit more about the pathways and what's required to meet each of those pathways that students can choose from. The high school and beyond plan, again, is that personalized plan that started by 8th grade and updated throughout high school. And it just helps to support students in planning and visualizing and working toward their post-high school goals. So these links here will provide you with some resources and guidance around the high school and beyond plan, what's required inside of the actual high school and beyond plan, and also some guidelines for aligning the high school and beyond plan with IEP transition plans. Especially that resource there has some very in-depth and helpful information for staff who are working with students who have IEP plans. It contains a lot of examples of aligning IEP plans and high school and beyond plans, and also ways that you can do differentiation with the high school and beyond plan through like visual differentiation, and just a ton of resources related to an area that may be a little bit harder for staff to wrap their heads around, but that can give you a lot of guidance and information about how to get that process started. Oh, also, let me go ahead and plug our high school and beyond plan webinar, our graduation webinar series that we have in partnership with WASAC. And so we actually will have one next week. We had one before, which was related to high school and beyond plan implementation, but our next one will be targeted at increasing, not strategies to increase, but actually legislative updates that are coming up. But we do have a link to our strategies to increase student, family, and community engagement in high school and beyond plan, which was part of our OSPI WASAC graduation webinar series. So you can access the recording to that high school and beyond plan webinar, as well as the slides in case you wanted to get a little bit more info about things directly related to high school and beyond plan. Again, just touching base on what we just covered about the GRU waiver and resources. The purpose of that GRU waiver is to allow school districts, charter schools, tribal compact schools, state and private schools to waive certain graduation requirements on an individual student basis, and also to allow for the waiver of certain requirements for private schools. So the emergency waiver program is to prevent students from being unduly impacted by those unforeseen disruptions to their education, resulting in an emergency or disaster such as the pandemic. So you'll have some resources here pertaining specifically to the GRU waiver, as well as a link to a past OSPI graduation requirement emergency waiver presentation. And again, signing up for that webinar next week will also provide you a chance to be able to engage with SBE and OSPI for any more specific questions you have about the GRU waiver. And lastly, just to wrap up, we have some contacts here at OSPI in case you have some specific questions related to subject areas like me, secondary school counseling support. Alexandra Tony in special services supports graduation specifically related to special service delivery. And I will let Mandy jump in for contacts in the Open Doors program.
Thanks, Brittany. Yeah, so you can reach myself or Liz Quayle. Both of us support Open Doors Youth Reengagement, questions, answers, resources, and technical assistance. Liz Quayle also wears an additional hat, if you will,